writer! Have you taken your writing as far as you can on your own? Are you looking for a writing community to help you get it to that next level? Maybe a place where you can connect, get inspired, and make some real progress while writing, editing, and promoting your book. I'm super excited to announce my brand new Inner Circle, which is launching in July 2025. It delivers all the support that I normally reserve for my private one on one coaching clients, but it's in a small group format with other supportive writers to get you all the information you need to make your book the best it can be. It's just $199 a month, which is a fraction of the cost of my normal one on one coaching. Check out the details at suzievadori.com/inner circle. We're getting kickstarted early July, so grab your place now. Welcome to Show Don't Tell Writing with me, Suzie Vidori, where I teach you the tried and true secrets to writing fiction, nonfiction that are going to wow your readers, broken down step by step. We're going to explore writing techniques. I'm going to show you a glimpse behind the scenes of successful writers' careers that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. And I'm also going to coach writers live on their pages so that you can learn and transform your own storytelling. Whether you're just starting out, you're drafting your first book, you're editing, or you're currently rewriting that book, or maybe even your 10th book, this show's going to help you unlock the writing skills that you didn't even know you needed, but you definitely do. I'm so looking forward to helping you get your amazing ideas from your mind onto your pages in an exciting way for both you and your readers so that you can achieve your wildest writing dreams. And you're going to also have some fun doing it. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast, Show Don't Tell Writing. We have part 2 in my series with Liz J. Bradley from Team Suzie and her 100 rejections for short fiction. Last week's episode, she shared with us all the details, how many she submitted, what that process looks like, and how she does it. This week's episode is part 2. We're going to talk a lot about Liz's writing process. How does she manage to juggle everything, and how does she do it? What she's learned, what her plans are, and how this is going to play into her plans for her next novel. Liz J. Bradley grew up in a small town in central New York, but followed a career in the theater that took her from the ocean to the tundra to the Eiffel Tower. And in a creative pivot, she began to explore new worlds on the page instead of on the stage. Now she spends her days as an executive assistant. She supports Team Suzie here as well as other executives, and she spends her nights telling space stories through prose and poetry. She hosts the Sci-Fi Snacks podcast, which you can link to and grab in the show notes, and you can also find her online at lizjbradley.com. What about the writing itself, though, Liz? We're talking about all the submission and all the sort of noise around this process that you've built, but what about the writing? So if we're doing, I mean, that first story you said was several months back and forth, but what is typical, like for 1,000-word story, how much time are you spending on these stories, and is it getting faster?
It's getting faster in some ways, yes, because there are, I draft a lot cleaner now than I used to. I can, for a piece of flash fiction, which is anything under 1,000 words, I can sit down and write that in a day or two and have a pretty clean draft. Usually.
And when you say a day or two, like that's not 8 hours a day. That's
no.
How much time is it? What's your process?
I can't usually write for more than 2 hours would be my top. And that we're doing like Pomodoro writing sprints in that time. Drafting is my least favorite part of the entire process of writing. I will plan for forever. I like to have like a really clear picture in my head before I sit down because drafting is painful. I have a really hard time like getting my inner editor to not talk. So the drafting part, I try to power through it as quickly as I can because otherwise I get stuck thinking that I'm just the worst writer in the world. So anything for Flash, it's probably like 4 hours to write the piece. And then editing, which is my favorite part of the process, I did the math once and I was really, really upset about it actually, because I've been doing a contest where I write drabbles, which are 100 words exactly. Like not 99, not 101, 100 words. You have to tell a complete story. And I will spend a week working on it. And like the actual sitting down writing process part is maybe only a few hours. But when you extrapolate that out to like a novel, I'm like, I can spend a few hours on every single like 100-word chunk.
Yeah.
My novel, like I literally will never finish anything. So I spend more time per word on shorter stuff right now, but that helps when I'm writing novel length stuff because I've learned a lot of things paying that much attention to the short fiction. So I know, I'm not worrying about formatting stuff. I've got that pretty well. I know how to do dialogue with action beats, and I know what my voice sounds like. So I know how I like to kind of get a scene out there. So it helps
Yeah.
me write the novel stuff faster because I've spent time. It's like doing a character study for an artist where they just spend like a week drawing hands. That's what flash fiction and drabbles and stuff is for me. I'm spending all this time working on the prose itself, making sure it does double duty, triple duty, because when you don't have the space, every sentence, every word has to
Yes, Liz.
pull
I've
its
heard this.
weight.
Yeah, absolutely. Double, triple duty. We talk about that a lot.
Mhm.
And I know in terms of process, you said that you use Pomodoro. Are you a 25-minute Pomodoro? Like
I am.
that's where you set a timer, typically 25 minutes, and you write, and then you take a quick break, and then you do it again, and you stay focused. And I know too, Liz had shared she is part of my inner circle of writers that you can learn more about in the show notes. But we did this exercise a couple of weeks ago where we were talking about our writing process and imagining what is the best writing day that you've ever had. And Liz had this aha moment where she'd been scheduling time in the evening after her kids went to bed and canceling on herself for these writing dates and realizing that she'd never really had that's not when her energy was. And so she figured out that if she wrote on her lunch hour, she might be more successful. So there's always things that you can tweak about your writing process. So if you're listening and going, oh my gosh, like she's talking about writing every day or writing all the time, and I don't have that time, just use what time you do have. Just use what time you do have and figure out what process works for you. And that's Liz is continually tweaking her process. And it's kind of neat because you get to be immersed in this and helping and supporting other writers. And so you're always also thinking about your own process and how you can improve that as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So great results, amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing all these details. Is this what you expected when you started out? Like, were you like, okay, I'm going to get to 100 rejections and I'm going to be doing this machine? And is this like, are you happy with these results with 9 published stories? I hope so.
I'm thrilled. Honestly, I think it's really easy to get bogged down in the rejections and the gatekeeping that comes when you want traditionally published goals. And there's always people telling you no and telling you can't. And I think when I sat down and I actually looked at like the percentages and numbers, I was surprised that I'm at average or above average on those statistics, which for me, it doesn't always feel that way because it feels like, oh, you're failing, you're not getting anywhere, you're not hitting these arbitrary goals that, I think it's really important to set goals that you can control. I, for a couple of years, was like, oh, I'm going to get an agent this year. I can control that. So that's not a goal for me anymore. My goal is to submit to agents. My goal is to write a better book. It's to write a better query letter. It's to do the things that I can do. So like stopping and pausing for a minute and looking at all that I've accomplished and how far I've come was actually really, really helpful and made me feel really good about my process. And actually, I'm inspired because I look at this list of things that I want to write. And I think people get scared in the beginning thinking that they'll run out of ideas. And that's literally not
It's part of the problem.
And because
Yeah,
as you write
rarely.
more things, you're like, oh, well, what about this idea and this idea? And ideas beget ideas. And so as you keep writing, you keep thinking of things that you want to write about or you want to try. And so I have so many, my only regret is that I don't have more time to write. And that may be that pie in the sky goal of I'm going to be a full-time writer someday. And maybe I'll build up to it. We'll
I know
manifest
you're gonna
that.
do it. You're gonna do it, Liz, and
So,
we're gonna miss you so hard when you do.
yeah,
But
it always takes longer than you think. But I think reviewing what I've done and looking at all the stories that I've written, I feel really good about it. Like, I'm excited. I'm happy. I want to keep writing and I want to keep submitting.
yeah,
It's awesome.
that's what I was gonna ask you. Are you gonna keep going? 2 years in,
For
you're gonna
sure.
keep going. What's the next goal?
So
100
technically
rejections achieved.
technically my goal for this year was 52 submissions, which was one for each week. And I've already surpassed that. So my new goal for the year was 100 submissions. And the other goal that I'm kind of shifting to is clearing out my editing section on my spreadsheet and getting them to submission ready. So I really, really want to focus on carving out that time on my lunch hour and things like that to get these stories that I'm still editing. I have feedback on all of them from my critique partners, and I know what needs to be done. I just need to put in the time to get them to a polished place to submit. And I've got one that I'm looking at that is a capture the flag on the moon story that is, I'm so excited about it and I want to share it with the world and I want to talk with people about it. But I know it needs edits and I just have to do it. So the new goal is to really clear out that editing queue so that I can be submitting these new things and replacing the things that are getting published with stuff that can kind of go in after it for submissions.
Yes. So, I mean, the cool thing for listeners, if they don't understand how short story works, there's this neat thing too, where you can actually republish the same thing, right? Like it's a reprint. And so even if it's been published somewhere, usually there's a grace period and then you can keep submitting that same story and get paid for it again. Is that something that you're doing with those stories that have been published?
Yeah, so I'm tracking each of my contracts has actually been different, anywhere from they hold on to rights for a year to it's 3 months, I think is the shortest. So I have a list of dates on all of the ones that have been published. When can I start sending this back out? And most of them have an exception for there are a lot of best of this year anthology type things. And almost everyone has an exception on their exclusivity period if you're submitting to those. So I've actually submitted a couple of times some of the things that I've already published to those anthologies and things like that. So that would be really cool.
So amazing. Okay. So if your head is spinning just listening to Liz and everything that she's been able to accomplish, yes, she is superhuman and she's really got this down to a science. But, many writers have the opposite issue that you were just talking about. It's not about more ideas. It's like, oh my gosh, I have 20 things on the go. And I always tell them to pick one and get it done. How do you keep from just getting totally overwhelmed if you've got 30 stories that are sort of on the go? I mean, if anybody can do it, you can. And obviously you've managed to do it. How are you doing that?
The secret in writing for me has been sharing my work with critique partners. So at the same time I started doing this, I had just joined a local group through my library. And check out your library because there are writers groups usually, or you can start one through your library and then they host it. For me, I share almost everything that I write with these critique partners. I also share everything with my sister who reads kind of my zero drafts, and she is a reader. She's not a writer. So she's really able to tell me, this is exciting. I like this idea. And I find that then talking about the different stories with people is the way that I can kind of prioritize in my mind what I'm excited about working on. And I think that following that excitement, really thinking about which story is the most exciting to you. It's how I got through my last novel that I wrote. I had been writing a young adult fantasy that was really dark and kind of sad and heavy. And I was like, COVID hit, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I cannot keep working on something that's just so heavy and dark and isn't bringing me joy. I literally sat down and was like, what are things that make me happy? And I put them all together and I said, I'm going to write a book with all of these elements, like Kesha's Rainbow Album and theater people and space, because it's got to be set in space and all of these things that bring me joy. And that's kind of what I follow. I look at these stories and I go, which ones bring me the most joy? And those are the
Yeah.
ones that I work on because I have limited time. You know?
Yeah, and you are really smart about it. Like because you schedule your writing time because you have to,
Mhm.
because your life is
You have to.
crazy. And you schedule your writing time. And when you sit down, you have that spreadsheet, you look and you choose one thing when you do your timers for
Mhm.
25 minutes and you work on that one
Yeah.
thing. So even if you've got more things on the go and you're able to manage that because you have these systems in place, but it's still about finishing that one thing. Okay. So the elephant in the room here, we're doing all these other things. Talk
Yeah.
about, because we set out to write a novel. And
Mhm.
and honestly, I can't believe I'm even saying this. Please don't try this at home, but Liz is still writing novels. So can you talk a little bit about that amazing novel that you did that brought you joy, where that ended up? And I know the answer to this one because I don't read all of her short fiction. I couldn't possibly, it would be a full-time job, I think, but I do help and get the privilege of critiquing some of the novel length stuff. So talk about where that novel ended up and what you're working on now and how you're doing that
Yeah.
and also doing all this other things and also being the most amazing team member.
Hey, Susie, compartmentalizing. It really is about compartmentalizing your projects. And so that joy novel for me it's technically still out on submission for queries. So I think that there are still 8 queries that are out. I have 2 full requests that are still out that I have been out for a really long time. And yes, publishing moves very slow, but I've emotionally moved on from the querying stage. So if I don't hear back from those last 8, I've already moved on, essentially.
Well, and to be fair, because you're not going to toot your own horn, you received some extremely warm rejections, where the feedback is so positive. Agents absolutely love this book, and yet they can't figure out how to sell it because you combined a lot of different things, which were your joy spots, right? And you're like, "Whew, maybe I can't sell it to this market." So true to Liz form, what are you doing now?
I started from my query. So the first thing I wrote for the next book was my hook and my query because it was so hard to write a book that was 94,000 words and then distill it to a page. And it really was, the marketability of that last book was tough because it didn't have a clear hook. It didn't have a one sentence thing that somebody would go, "Ooh, I want to buy that. I want to read that." So I started with that for the next book. So when I wrote the query, I did some pitch events. Blue Sky is actually kind of trying to bring back those pitch events. And I had done those for the Joy novel.
That used to
And
be on Twitter, and actually
yeah,
one of my good colleagues originally got her agent on Twitter. And yeah, those have died out, but Blue Sky is a new social media. Check it out. Sorry, keep going, Liz.
yeah, no. And I think doing these pitch events, they have a lot now for work in progress pitch events, where it's kind of just more about building community and sharing your story. And it can feel like, well, what's the point? The point is knowing your pitch going in. And now, whenever I'm writing a chapter or I'm looking at it, I have my pitch posted like right on my wall, and I can go, what is the essence of this story? And is this chapter resonating with that? Because I don't want to write, 50,000 words that I have to cut because it doesn't fit in the novel. So this time I wrote that back jacket copy and I know what the story is. And now it's about zooming in and expanding those pieces and making sure everything fits with this idea and this theme. So when I go out to query, it may shift a little bit based on kind of what I find as I write, but I'm somebody who works really well within structures. I think that's why I love like flash fiction so much is give me boundaries and I will work right up to the edge of the boundary and be as creative as I can within the box. So I've created that box for myself with this novel. Like it's not that it can be anything because that's really hard when you sit down and it's like 100,000 words. That's how people end up with like 500,000 word epics.
People are like, should I just break it into 3 books? And I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah. So you got to work within the confines. So I gave myself those confines. I wrote the pitch and now I'm exploring what the different characters that I've created, how do they exist inside the world where this is what we're talking about and this is what we're exploring.
Yeah. I love how you've taken what you've learned in this short fiction journey. And I mean, I've seen your writing just absolutely blossom and explode since since I've met you, and you were a newer writer when you first started working with me and my team. And now it's like just so solid, and you know what readers and what editors are responding to and all of that. You're able to take that and actually move it into that novel space. And so whatever happens, and you know this, and you can kind of, I mean, it was hard, right? I know I was there. It was hard to put that first book to kind of let it go. We had many discussions about it, but but you know that that's going to come back from your experience of, I think, when you get this more marketable one and get that out there, the hope is that there'll be some space for this other one that kind of doesn't have a home to your readers are going to just absolutely eat it up because
I hope so.
Things that are make it you.
Yeah. No writing is ever wasted. And I think really internalizing that helped me move on from that book into the next one. And I always have something on the back burner that I'm really excited about that I don't let myself touch. So I already know the next book, and I'm not allowed to work on that until I get through the hard parts of this novel. And I think it might be controversial because you hear it all the time in online spaces where people say short stories are harder than novels. And I don't think so at all. Like I will fight tooth and nail. Novels are harder.
I think they're different skill sets, but yes.
Slightly, but I think that a lot of people, what it is they don't encounter the whole process in a novel. They write a first draft and they think I've written a novel. And some novels are easier because I haven't engaged with the rewriting and the whole process of
polishing
as
strong as it could be. Yeah.
Yeah. And because people say, oh, well, a short story has to be really, really polished. So does your novel.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to do both. And so I think they're both very hard in different ways, but you can get through the hard faster in the shorter stuff. So
yeah,
I like that part.
I think what's neat about the job that we both have on Team Susie is that we get to see so many other writers' processes that we get to reflect on our own as well. And I don't write short stories, and it's not because I think they're harder or anything else. I actually love the challenge of a novel, like holding all of that in my brain and trying to piece through it. It's the reason I love developmental editing, because I do it for other people as well. But holding all of that in my brain is part of the fun. Do I think I could write short story? I mean, we all think that we should. I haven't. I don't.
Yeah.
Right.
There are different types of stories. You're not going to tell the same story in 100 words as you are in a novel. Like in 100 words, that story is about one single moment, one single choice. Flash fiction, where you've got 1,000 words, that's about one change. And then a novel is about kind of transformation and whatnot that you get to explore 1,000 of those little choices. And so what I think is great is that you can work on having a full story in each format, and that will help you. Because if you can write a complete story in 100 words, what the important things are that get people interested, and then
Absolutely.
that goes into your novel.
Absolutely. Many writers do start there with a novel, and then they add a bunch of stuff to make it not 100,000 words. And you've got to be really careful that you're not just adding tea sipping. I always use that example, but making tea, it's got to kind of be a lot more, but it still needs to weave together. Amazing. This has been such a valuable discussion. I'm sure that the listeners are really jazzed and probably going to go out and be your competition now with all of these short story
Bring it.
submission
Bring
places.
it. I love it.
Bring it, right? Knowing the outcome, would you do it again?
100%. 100%. It's all about the journey and what I've learned about myself as an artist, as a writer, as a person, like the amount of personal insights where I've had writing a story and just being like, oh, that's who I am. That's what I believe. That's invaluable. And so I would never give it up for all the tears that I cry, for all of the hard
Making me
parts that
struck
I'll
right
do
now.
it.
Just like, this is what writing should be, Liz. And this is what writing and immersing yourself in this space can be. And you've also gamified it for yourself for those dopamine hits. And so you're seeing a lot of success. And I love that. Okay. So where can we find you? You also have a podcast, which is a really cool thing. Tell us about your podcast.
I do. The podcast is called Sci-Fi Snacks. And each episode, I talk about a short science fiction story that I've read, and I pair it with a snack because nothing is better than reading and eating good things. Season 2 is just about to drop, and that's going to be all punk stories. So like steampunk, cyberpunk, pulp punk, all of that. It was a project for me that I chose to do it to read more, to become a better writer, but also as the one project that I could do that had no gatekeepers. There's nobody telling me, no, you can't do this except for myself. So that's another joy project. Follow the joy. That's the theme. Do the things that make
Very
you happy.
Kondo of you. Very Marie Kondo of you. Okay.
Yeah.
So check that out if you love science fiction. If you're interested, Liz could totally educate you on all the different subgenres and things, which if you are interested in pursuing something, especially in science fiction, but it's really important when you're looking at short story to understand all these different markets. You've got to understand what it is that they're asking for as well. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Liz. Come on the show anytime.
Thank you so much, Susie. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Show Don't Tell Writing with me, Susie Vidori. Help me continue to bring you the straight goods for that book you're writing or planning to write. Please consider subscribing to this podcast and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you're listening. Also visit susievidori.com/newsletter to hop on my weekly Inspired Writing newsletter list, where you'll stay inspired and be the first to know about upcoming training, events, and writing courses that happen in my community. If you're feeling brave, check the show notes and send us a page of your writing that isn't quite where you want it to be yet for our Show Don't Tell page review episodes. Remember, that book and your writing is going to open doors that you haven't even thought of yet, and I can't wait to help you make it the absolute best. If you're feeling called to write that book, keep going, and I'm going to be right here cheering you on. See you again next week.